Here we go. Tier maker. Alright, so we're going to start with the leaders. We put them all here. Make sure I'm not missing anybody. Zeus. Thor. Sano. Poseidon. Hera. Odin. Athena. Valona. That it? Am I missing anyone? Make sure I'm not missing anyone. That should be everybody, right? Okay. Alright, so starting with Thanatos. Thanatos has great early and mid game. He can fall off late game depending on what you have trait wise. Very balanced, nothing wrong with him. Middle of the pack. Loki, same thing. If there's the right traits in the game like fire, force, things like that, Loki does go up because he can teleport, which does an aggro dump, and then ult the person with the highest health. Same thing for Thanatos, except when enemies die, Thanatos gets lifesteal, and he gets an attack speed stem. Zeus got a buff, very reliant, very trait reliant for him to do anything. A little bit below, but if intelligence is in the game, if intelligence and astral in the game, it's where he really shines because that gives him a buff to his ultimate. Or any kind of like intelligence, astral, wisdom. If you put those in your team comp, Zeus will carry you throughout the whole game. Thor is a little bit below average. He does give a good buff to his team, but his spin really doesn't do anything, and he can be CC'd out of it, which really doesn't do anything for him. Susano got a rework. Pretty much the same thing. Very trait dependent, can be CC'd out of a lot of things. Personally, I think his evasion should have stayed instead of being removed, so that way he can do a little bit more. His passives are good for the crit chance, but overall, these two are very trait reliant to get anything really going. Poseidon, now that he has the buff, he is one of the best leaders in the game. You want to try to pull for Poseidon every chance you get when you do your leader order. Put him first and hope for the best. Now that he gives the passive 25% flat off at the jump, very easy for units to get their ults off and to blow up the enemy team. As you just saw in the last game that I had Poseidon and I really didn't do anything the whole game. Hera is really good for pet comps. Pretty much an A. If you have devotion, a devotion or like wild or something like that, she's really strong. If there's no anti-heal, basically if there's no anti-heal, she can really shine. The same thing with she kind of falls in the same category with Zeus. You put intelligence and things like that to buff up her ult when she summons Argus, who's CC immune. It can do a lot of damage. Kind of inconsistent with her summon of her ult. I've seen it fall on my team when I fight her, and then when I fight other people, it falls like off in the middle of nowhere. So she's very much in the middle. Odin is really strong. Gives the 20% damage reduction at the beginning. It carries throughout the whole game, which is really good for your team comps. If you want to put him next to like your carrier or whatever the case may be, situate him to where he's protecting your carry. Can really help you get to the end game. Usually these are the characters you see in the top 4, depending on the trait. Well, with that, they're not very trait reliant. These two. Athena is S tier. She brings a good ult to the table. Also, the passive for the regen for the minions is really good. However, the downfall to her is if she's on the field by herself, she doesn't do anything. So if you kill all the other minions, she has no one to ult to, which doesn't make her CC immune. So therefore, she just dies for free. She has a rough early game, but her mid and late game are really strong if you get the right pieces on the field. Valona is in the same is very subjective for these 4, but personally I think Valona is just a smidge below Odin. Just due to the fact that Odin has the shield that he can soak up a lot more damage. Valona is very good to slow play. So if you want to slow play the game, basically don't hyper roll, which is the meta right now. You buy your unit, You know, let it slowly build up, and then you buff up those units because her passive buffs common, uncommon, and rare units. So therefore, you're getting your units on the field that you want, and then with them getting that buff from Valona, they just steamroll everybody else if you can manage to get that. But those are the updated tier list. So who saw the biggest gains and losses? I wonder. Um, Poseidon was really the only one who got the biggest gain. As you can see, Zeus is kind of middle of the pack. He's very trait reliant, but this is the leaderboard that you want to get. I know people can make other gods work more consistently, but the ones in S, S plus, SS, S, and A are the ones you typically want to go for. B and C are more trait reliant. So you'd have to have the perfect combination for them to do what they need to do. Now to go over units, we'll just do alphabetical order for units. Let me go ahead and remove these. Oh, actually, there's a reset button down here. I'm stupid. I didn't mean reset the whole page, but okay. I hit the reset button and it resets the whole page. I'm just waiting for this thing. You hit reset and everything just goes away. I think the site has issues because it took a minute to load too. But those are the leaders you want to go for. Now for units, how do I want to do this? We'll just go in alphabetical order. Agni, king of the game right now. Doesn't need a whole lot to get going. His AoE, biggest one in the game, hits pretty much the whole board except maybe like the corners. The only downfall to Agni is that he can be CC'd and killed very quickly if you don't protect him. If you give him the proper traits, like intelligence, astral, even a silence, he carries you throughout the whole game. Let's see. Puck is very middle of the road. His minions don't get me wrong, his minions do a lot of damage, and they they disarm, and what was it? Disarm, and there was one other thing. Disarm. There's one other. I can't remember what the trait does. Very good in pet comps. He can shine if you get the right traits on him. Not really a unit you should be looking for, like off the jump, but if he's there and you don't have anything else on your board and you have the right traits, then I would definitely put him in. Let's see. Amaterasu. She is a really good unit just for the fact that she can cleanse. She's a tank, so she's going to absorb a lot of damage. You want to put health-related items on her so she can stay alive longer to cleanse her team. She's the only unit that has a cleanse, which is really good for like CC heavy teams that you're going up against and things like that. Not really trait dependent. You can put whatever traits you want on her. You really are relying on that ult and her to soak damage and do her job as a tank. So if you want to run endurance, things like that, that's perfectly fine. Let's see. Anher is another unit that is middle of the pack. Good early game. His ult takes a little too long to get off. It's a wind up, so it's like maybe like a half a second. If you see it, he'll wind up and then throw, but when he lands the stun, it's very good. It keeps that unit out the picture for, I believe, 3 seconds. Not really a trait dependent unit. If you get him early game, it's fine. You can swap him out for other characters that carry a lot better later. Anubis not in the game yet. He's not in the game yet. Apollo. This is the version of a hyper carry. This is a unit you want to get anytime you see him. You can put whatever traits you want on him and he will carry. Most Apollos, 5-star Apollos on average do about 4,000 damage on the damage meters. Depending on the traits, you can also bump that up to, 5 to 6 plus. One of the true hyper carries in the game. Uncommon unit, so he's there usually about round 2 or 3 if you get the good roll. Fits in any team comp, not relying on anybody. Any traits work on him, and he just does what he's supposed to do. Let's see, Arachne. Arachne is she's a little bit below average. Her babies really don't do anything. They're really weak and easy to kill. However, there are some items that you can give to these pet unit gods that make them really strong. Arachne is really good in a pet comp, or if you're trying to do a stall tactic. Basically, you get her an ult rush, let her just keep ulting, so that way you stall somebody out until you can get another unit later on in the game to swap her out for. Not a unit you really should be going for unless you're running Hera, and Hera with these two is ideal. But overall, just little bit below average. I think they need to give a little bit of love to her babies, maybe, and they should be okay. Let's see, Achilles. Achilles, since he went down, since he got a, not really a nerf, but they changed him from, I believe it was from legendary to an epic unit. He went from a B to an A, if that makes sense. Really good unit. Preferably you want to get things that help generate his ultimate. When he ults, it's just like in the game. When he ults, it resets and he can ult again. However, he does have some downfalls. He can be CC'd, just like any other unit. So you want to probably get some CC immunity, traits that buff his ult. But since he got the change from legendary to epic, he went from a middle of the road to someone that you can really look forward to. Because I've had games where Achilles has carried me throughout the entire game. So just my personal opinion on that one, I think he's an A tier unit. Not, you can roll for him, but it's kind of like there's other units that take precedent over him. Let's see, Artemis. She is just awful. I would rank her lower, but since she is a pet comp unit, she works really well with Hera. There's items, she's very trait reliant. Attack speed, ult rush. Let's see what else. Probably CC immunity boots on her to make her viable. Her Tusky takes a long time to come out, just like in the game, and she can be CC'd and killed off rip. So it's a very hard unit to really work around. She needs a pet comp or certain traits in order for her to shine. Let's see, Bakasura. Bakasura is a middle of the road unit. He can hyper carry if you get the right items on him. Very good early game unit for an assassin to jump in the back line and start attacking everybody, and his ult does true damage. So if you get his ult rush and then put attack speed on him, it's just like playing the game where he just starts shredding everybody. Not really a whole lot to say about him. You put him on the field, let him, if you can build him up, build him. If not, swap him out for another assassin who does what he does but better later on. Let's see, Cabrakan. Cabrakan is a really strong unit, really strong tank. He can fit into any comp. You can put pretty much any item on him and he does his job as he's supposed to do. There are, I believe, 2 items that make him really shine. One is the axe that does damage whenever he ults, damage over time, and the other one is the silence scroll. You put either one of those on him and he becomes a hyper carry. Doesn't matter what traits he has on him, he does his job. Of course, you would want to do his ult rush if you're trying to go the route of hyper carry, in order for him to do what he wants to do. Oh, my man, Camazotz. Since he got the change, Camazotz was SS when the game first came out. He was SS. He silenced everybody for 5 seconds that he landed on, did a whole lot of damage. But since he got the little nerf, he has dropped down a little bit. Still a unit you want to go for if he's in the game, as he still silences for 3 seconds, and does a good bit of damage. Fits into any team. Fits in any team that you can build around him or that you want to fit him into, and is not very trait reliant. Cerberus. Middle of the road unit. Doesn't really have a whole lot of health compared to other tanks in the game. Can do a lot of damage if you build him with magical damage or an ult rush or intelligence astral, anything like that. He can do a lot of damage to a team because his breath is a damage over time. The only issue is you have to angle him right, or the AI has to angle him right to where he can do maximum damage to multiple enemies. Typically his ult usually hits one person and then that person's done and then his ult is over. Then he's just sitting there trying to build up his ult again and continue to do what he does. Not really a legendary or epic unit that, excuse me, a legendary unit that I would pull for. But if he happens to fall into your lap and you need a tank, you put him in there for fodder until you get something else better. Cerberus, one of the best hunters in the game. His AoE CC is so good that it's really hard to deal with him in a competitive setting. If you put CC boots on CERN, he will destroy a team. That is the one item you need to look for if you're going to run Cerberus, is CC boots. He fits into any comp. He can have any traits on him. He's not trait reliant. And he can hyper carry. And now if the other team has CC immunity items, then it's a problem, but he still does damage because he's a hunter. Let's see. Chernobog, not a very good unit. He is a good 1-star cost starting the game, but you want to swap him out as soon as possible. His ult makes him immune for like 2 seconds. However, he can still be hit by ultimates while he's in his ult form. Has the lowest, I think one of the lowest attack speeds in the game. I'd have to double check on that, but just not a unit you want to go for. When it's all said and done. When you're at level 9, and you have your team on the board. Chronos, in my opinion, is an A tier unit, a unit you want to go for. His ult, he swings the slowdown orb, which goes across the map, hits multiple units. Those units get slowed down, and then he buffs up his team's attack speed. If you happen to get Chronos and Apollo in the same team, you're pretty much guaranteed top 4. Max them both out and guarantee top 4. Chronos works with any item, any trait. Doesn't really matter what you put on him. He fits in any team comp. Let's see. Daji. Daji is quietly one of the top units in the game, in my opinion. Nobody really runs her that I've seen. However, if you do manage to get her, she can have any trait, attack speed, you can put force on her. What else? You put the axe, any type of item or trait you can put on her, and she will go to work. 5-star Daji shreds just about any person she goes up against. And then with the traits, she does even more damage. So she is 100% a unit that I would look for if I'm playing and try to get to 5 stars as soon as possible. For an assassin, she is one of the best in the game. Her ult does a aggro dump. She teleports to the lowest, I believe the lowest health enemy, hits them with the bleeding claws. It does a bleed and then does damage on an impact. So she basically can just keep hopping around and doing that to enemies and get them off the field as soon as possible. Discordia, she was an S tier. 100% sweaty, 100% Vigo. Discordia was an S tier. She's dropped down just a smidge. If there was an A+, I'd put her in A+, but she is now a middle-of-the-road unit. Her AoE was really big. They shrunk that down a bit for her ultimate, so she lost some potential there as far as CCing multiple targets. Her ult usually hits maybe like 2 or 3 people at most. Still a good unit you can go for depending on the team comp that you want. Just like with any of these, she doesn't have any specific thing that you need to put on her. She does her job very well for what she's there to do. And just another unit that's in that epic area that you want to go for if you happen to start getting on those that level 7 or 8 in the game. Let's see. Fafnir's not in the game. Geb. I just have an affinity for Geb. Geb is one of the units that I look for every game that I can. His ult is really strong. It's Cataclysm. So he ults, does damage, stuns the enemies, multiple enemies at a time, can soak a lot of damage. If you put certain traits on him or certain items on him, he becomes almost unkillable. Just a unit personally that I would look for in every game that I play, because he's one of the epitomes of tanks. And then I believe at 5-star he has like 2,500 health. I want to say 2,500 or something like that. But just a really good unit. Let's see. Guan Yu, Papa Guan, busted in Smite, busted in the game. Guan Yu is that dude. His ult, he dashes through 5 people. Has an aggro dump, so he becomes untargetable at that point, and then it resets once he comes back on the board. I've seen a Guan Yu with astral intelligence and then a magical damage item delete 5 people as he did his ult and straight won the game. He's one of the top units you want to look for when you get to rolling 4 legendary units. Just there's not really much else to say. It's just Daddy Guan is top tier. So that's just where he sits, and he's going to sit there for a long time until they change something about him. Hachiman, middle of the road. He was pretty bad before. I'm starting to see more people work with him, and I've tried experimenting with him myself. His banner is really good if you can manage to put him around other characters that can carry, like an Apollo or Kronos. Because he drops the banner on himself, which gives an attack speed stem to him and then does damage to the enemy. Middle of the road unit, uncommon, so you probably won't see him as much if you're rolling for other units, but if you can get him maxed out, right traits on him, he starts to shine really well. Let's see, next, Hades. Hades got a buff, and Hades also got a buff on the tier list. Hades is now a unit you want to get in the early game. His AoE is really good. If you put the Blight Axe on him, hits most of the units on the field, does dot damage, he does what he's supposed to do. Common unit, probably one of the best common units you should look for when you start the game. Everybody tends to get him, so you probably want to pivot off it, but if you manage to get him 5-star, he does a lot of damage. Intelligence, Astral, the Silence, Wisdom, any of the mage or mana traits work really well with him. Hebo. Where to put Hebo? Hebo does his job. He does what he's supposed to do. There's nothing wrong with Hebo. Nothing like, oh my god, I gotta have him about Hebo. Right traits on him, he becomes, a one-shot machine. If he doesn't have the traits, he's just there for fodder, essentially. There's not really much else to talk about the Hebo. The knockup is a single target. You can delete somebody if you have the traits that you need to have on him. That's pretty much it. Dryad. Dryad is not a D unit. She's very dependent on what's in the game. I'll just say that right now. If there's poison in the game, do not play her. If poison is not in the game, she becomes an S tier character, because there's nothing to stop her from healing the whole team. If you put her in the back behind like your carries, she will continuously heal them to full health. And that's why she is where she is. But if there's poison in the game or somebody's running anti-heal, not put her in the game. She will not be able to do anything. She doesn't bring anything else to the table. So she's very dependent on what's being run at the time. So once again, if there's no anti-heal, like poison or anything like that, S tier. If there is, don't play her. So just to remind you guys. Let's see. I wish her to. Hu Yi doesn't do anything. His ult is okay. He's just another typical. I don't think he should be a legendary unit. He should probably be like an epic unit. Probably tone him down some, or maybe give him a slight buff. Just doesn't do anything. If you want to sprinkle him in, that's fine. But personally, I wouldn't pull for him. Just a middle of the road unit. Hunsbats. Hunsbats does his job and does his job really well. Does take a little bit of wind up for his ultimate. However, you can put certain items on Hunsbats to silence, damage over time, CC, any type of thing. It's any type of those items on Hunsbats makes his ult really good for stopping multiple units at a time. Is somewhat squishy. However, he does ramp up as you continue to level him up or you give him certain items. So Hunsbats is one that you would probably look for in your team comps, depending on what you're running. Let's see. Izanami. Hard carry. Another unit that is a hard carry. She does have the passive power buff that she gets from her abilities. I don't know why they didn't give her like some kind of maybe her 2 or the ultimate that she actually does in the game for a silence. But you stack attack speed or force or fire, and she just starts shredding. These two are going to be your 2 typical carries for hunters that you want to look for in the Izanami and Apollo. Jingwei, she's so good. She's so good. She is so good. Jingwei is so good. She is the ultimate troll. And when I say that, I mean that in the most respectful way. The fact that she does a backstep that dumps all aggro off of her makes her an incredibly good unit that you want to look for in the game. Uncommon unit, works with any team comp, works with any items. But typically with hunters, you do want to get attack speed stems or something that does additional hits or even lifesteal. But these 3 top tier units you want to get. Callie. Callie is really good. Another unit you want to pull for. If you put DI on Callie, she becomes unkillable. If you put DI and give her lifesteal, she's unkillable just like in the game. Maxed out Callie will 1-tap most units on the field. Her ult can apply multiple applications of items like the axe or the silence or what else? There's also another one that improves her crit, but that would apply. Well, that would apply as well. Very good unit, one you would look for in the game. I know you're probably gonna hear me say this a lot, but just right there, middle of the road, want to get them. Khepri. Khepri's a really good unit. Khepri also needs to be at max for his ultimate to be of use. So Khepri's in the middle of the road for tanks. If you have a 5-star Khepri, he will revive a random unit to full health. That is the only issue because you can't select which unit reses. So his ult is based on how many stars you have him at. But Khepri, he can soak a lot of damage. He does his job as a tank, but it's not a priority when it comes to selecting tanks to put in your team comps. Let's see, Cuckoo. Cuckoo is a really good unit, very trait heavy. One you can get in the game. If you put the right traits on him, he one-shots everybody in a straight line at an angle, and that's pretty much the end of it. You don't have the right traits on him, he tends to struggle, but he is a good unit that you can pull for and put in your team. But there's other units, as you can see up here, that do the job just a little bit better. Let's see, Karkat, Kumba, whatever you want to call him. Doesn't really do anything. I would prefer to see his yawn instead of the knockup for his. So just to CC multiple people. Yes, knocking up one person is all well and good. However, it's usually another tank that wouldn't make wouldn't make a difference because that tank goes up, comes back down, then he uses his ult, and he's usually dead by that. Medusa. Good unit. Really good unit. Put the right traits on her, she carries. If you have Opportunist, what's the other one? If you get the Opportunist or Mage Hat or Haste, Fire, Force, several different ones. I mean, the ult stuns, so there's no point in putting the silence. But there's multiple items you can put the axe on her as well, so she does damage over time while the enemy is stunned as well. Really good unit, one I would pull for every time to get in the game. Let's see, who else are we missing? We went through there. Merlin the god. Look for him every game. That's all there needs to be said. Look for him every game. Put the right traits on him. He carries. His ult is probably the second biggest. Might be tied with Cerberus as far as size. Does massive damage, like in a dot damage kind of way. So and then typically units will walk into the ult, so they end up dying before they even get to him. You need to position him to where he doesn't get jumped on, just like Agni, so that way he can maximize his true damage in the game. Not very trait reliant, but it helps to have intelligence, astral, a silence, or even items that disarm or Um, the items that disarm, silence, or do additional damage over time benefit him. Mercury's not in the game, not in the game, not in the game, not in the game, not in the game. Pele, really good assassin. I don't really get Pele too often, but when I do get Pele, she does really good damage. She dashes through multiple enemies, does have an aggro dump, and then appears behind an enemy and starts attacking again. You put the right items on her, she can delete just like Guan Yu, multiple enemies at once. But with the fact that you only have a 10, I believe it's 10% chance to get legendaries, you probably won't be able to get her leveled up as quickly. But if you do get her, make sure you put her in the field if you don't have any other assassins in the game. Let's see, who else? Raijin. Where do I want to put Raijin at? Raijin's just okay. His ult, it does a circle. I mean, the AI pathing is pretty bad, so he does a lot of damage for his ult. But he doesn't really bring anything else to the table. Does need to be protected. Is very trait dependent, very trait dependent to maximize his potential compared to the others that are above him. If you get him, cool. But personally, if you get him, I would use him as a placeholder and swap him out for somebody else. Let's see, Rama, another good hunter. It seems like hunters are just top tier right now. That's how it should be. Rama does a lot of damage. His ult, he fires 3. Is every smite god in the game? Not yet. His ult fires 3 arrows that do physical damage. So of course you stack physical damage items on him. He one taps units. Needs to be protected just like the others. Unlike Apollo and the others, he needs to be protected more than them. Due to the fact that he goes straight up and then comes straight back down, and then it's a reset and try to build up more mana. So protect the president with him typically, if you want him to be your carry. Let's see, who else? Arthur. Arthur was up here in SS. Now that he became an epic character or legendary character, he is fallen down a little bit, just for the fact that that pool is so huge for units in that pool. If you manage to get Arthur 2 stars or higher, he will carry you about 90% of the time. You get the right traits on him in level 2 or higher, you win straight out. He executes the enemy with the most health off the jump when he gets his ultimate, therefore taking him and that enemy off the playing field, so he becomes untargetable. And then when he lands, the enemy that he hit is executed, and then he resets and does the same thing. Really good unit you should pull for if you happen to get him. Just the fact that he's in the same pool with other epic units makes him a little bit harder to get. Who else? Let's go with Scotty. Scotty is in the middle of the road. She has one of the highest attack speeds of hunters. However, her ult takes a little bit of time to get off, where she summons another dog. It is really good to use Scotty with Hera, just like the pet build. So pet builds, you want to use these 2. Where's she at? This one, and then these 3, and then this. That's what you want to use for your pet comp. But in a pet comp, she really shines. You put items on her that apply to her pets, like the Ankh or the Disable. She becomes really good. Next up, Sobek. Sobek has fallen off a little bit. Still a really good unit you want to pull for. Just for the fact that he went from common to uncommon, puts him in a whole nother pool, which makes him a little bit harder to get. Still does what he's supposed to do as a tank. You typically want to put him like in the corner somewhere where he's the furthest away from whoever you want to pluck to get them out of position. Other than that, nothing else really to say about him. He can mess up, your targeting for some of your units. Like if your units are focusing, the units will refocus somebody else, because when the pluck happens, it doesn't aggro up actually. Soul. Another unit you should be pulling for. Does a lot of damage. Her ring is a little bit smaller than most when she does her ult. However, it does apply anti-heal, and the damage goes in and out, just like she does in Smite. build the right stuff on her, she becomes a powerhouse unit that can carry you to late game. Doesn't really rely on a whole lot of traits. You can build her attack speed or damage. Doesn't really matter. Just like Kronos. So she fits into any team comp that you're trying. Some Wukong. Some Wukong is middle of, well, a little bit above average. His ult puts him in the air, makes him untargetable. He regains health while he's in the air. However, there's anti-heal in the game. His ult is really useless. Can soak a lot of damage for a warrior, but doesn't really bring anything else to the table. Actually, middle of the road unit. Not really someone you can. Well, his ult does. When he comes out of his ult, he does do. Excuse me. So yeah, put him right there. He doesn't really need a whole lot to come online. You just want to maximize his units from 1 to 5. Let's see, Sylvanas. If there is no anti-heal in the game, Sylvanas is one of the top tanks in the game. If there's anti-heal in the game, Sylvanas becomes a B tier unit. His heal is really good. However, you do need to stack a whole bunch of people around him for him to apply the heal correctly. Not very trait reliant. Can fit into any team comp that you want to build. However, he can be detrimental due to the fact that you have to put who you want him to heal next to him. So if he gets picked, then 9 times out of 10, the next person that's next to him is going to be picked as well. That's really all there is to say about him. I've seen a 5-star Sylvanas carry somebody where he just kept healing and the dude didn't do enough damage. So it's just where he sits right now. Uller, really good unit. The axes do a good bit of damage when he leaps. He leaps to the target's backline and starts hitting, which he has lifesteal at that point, so he's lifestealing as he's hitting with his axes. I believe the leap is an aggro dump from what I've seen. Excuse me, and just a hard carry. If you get no other units in the game, I would recommend it. Let's see who is next. Xing Qian. Xing Qian has become a legendary unit, but he's really good. He's here. He's not someone I would hyper roll for. If he's there, I'd get him. He starts off with 1,000 health, really good. Lets him soak a lot of damage. His ult is just like the ult in Smite, where he spins, grabs a bunch of people, and then flings them to displace them, which your units can then clean up at that time. But overall, since he's in that legendary pool, you won't see him as much, and there's other units that take part. When he was in the epic pool, he was up here in S tier. Let's see, Amir. Middle of the road unit. Has to be angled properly to apply his freeze on multiple people. Can soak some damage, but there's other tanks that do his job better. He has some decent CC for his. That's pretty much it. Quai. Quai is a S tier unit. You put a DI on Quai and let him go to work, he will ult and just walk at everybody and kill them. Can fit on any team. Doesn't really need a whole lot of traits to get him online. Can have pretty much any traits online. However, of course, with the mage, you want to have intelligence, astral, silence, something like that, for him to be effective. And that should be it, right? No, we're missing what's his name? Centaur and Centurion. Centurion, good unit. Centurion is a good unit. I'll use Ares for Centurion. Good unit. He got some love in the most recent patch. He does a mitigation buff, and I believe there was 2 things he does: mitigations and was it life? No, it wasn't lifesteal or health or something like that. But I know he gives mitigations off rip when he does it. It's in a circle, so you want to put him next to your other tank so that way they can soak more. And then Minotaur. Who will be Minotaur? Minotaur is C tier. Decent starting unit, not someone I would focus a lot of resources into, just for the fact that his ult only hits 1 person. It only stuns 1 person. Other than that, if you get him off the rip and you want to put other traits on him to swap them out later, it's perfectly fine. But that's pretty much how be seen as just someone to put who you want to swap to later, like a Gab or a Cabrakan or something like that. But that's pretty much the tier list. Once again, don't look at this Dryad as a do not play. It's very specific on what traits are in the game. But those are typically the units you want to have in any comp. Units you want to pull for if you're at 9 of 9, or if you're at level 9. Units you want to have typically in your comps. Units that are sprinkled in depending on what you're running. Units at the early game or very dependent on what traits you have. Units you want to get rid of as soon as possible if you have a team. And then this one is trait reliant, what's on the board. So yeah, that is the tier list. I hope you all enjoyed that. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. But they are working on some other leaders in the game, which is Neith, I believe Neith, Anubis, and Osiris. 3 more Egyptian gods being added, so they'll be tested and played. But this is what you'll typically see on the game, in the game, every game when you're going against other people. All right, let's see, what do we have here now? Let's see, we can. I hope you all enjoyed that. Let's go here. Alright guys, but that's gonna be it for me. I hope you all enjoyed the tier list. I will be back tomorrow, of course. I'll try to see if I can play, well no, it'll be afterwards when I can play Crucible. But you guys take it easy. I'll definitely have more codes to give away tomorrow. And you all be safe and take care. And I'm out of here. Later.